Hello, BookTube. This is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. I'm going to crack on with my 26 novels that won the Hugo and Nebula Award series. Hopefully, today I get through more than two books. Uh, I should do because I'm not as familiar with these ones. Um, we'll crack straight on anyway. The, the third book that won both the Hugo and Nebula, and this actually won the Locust Award as well. Or Locust. I know I call it Locust. And that is this was in 1971/1970, and it's Ringworld by Larry Niven. I mentioned this last time I made this video, and it got a lot of comments. I've tried to read this like two times, I think, and just never could get into it. So I've never actually finished this one. And a lot of people also replied to my video last time and said that they struggled with it as well. But we'll talk about it and see what it's like. So this is a found object novel, and it's the object they find is a big giant ring world. And if you know science fiction books, you'll know that a more famous novel that is coming up in this list in about 5 minutes has a very similar theme or a very similar plot line. So this quirky crew of aliens and humans is sent to investigate the ring world, and one of them's a cat man. I remember that, a big giant cat man, and they crash land onto the Ringworld and have to try and get off. Adventures happen, apparently. Some of the criticisms I've seen in this book are that it has misogyny in it, which for early 1970s sci-fi is not that unusual. Sometimes you sort of have to battle through that. And another thing I've seen people say is that he's not very good at characterization, and that is again not an unusual thing in hard sci-fi from the 60s and 70s. Normally then character is not what you go to these novels for. They're more about big ideas, and I looked on Goodreads at the 5-star reviews of this book, because it won every award going, so it definitely has its fans, and the fans tend to say that it's sort of mind-blowing ideas and a huge scale. So this is often what you get with classic hard sci-fi. You get the ideas and you lack the characters a bit, and I think that's something that Larry Niven must share with the big three. Isaac Asimov, Rob Heinlein, and Arthur C. Clarke. I don't think those three were very good at characters either, but they had great ideas. So I do want to give this another go, because although I love characterizations in novels, I can do without it if the idea's good. So I will give this another go one day. The next book that won was in 1973/1972, so 2 years later, and that is one of the big three. It's Isaac Asimov's The Gods Themselves. So I read this around 10 years ago, according to Goodreads, and I remember I was reading a lot of Asimov at the time, or I was just reading his key sci-fi ones, and I'm not a huge Asimov fan, but for Foundation I didn't really like that much. This was definitely my favourite one that I read, so it might be due a reread at some point. So this was actually Asimov's first science fiction book that he wrote for about 15 years. If you know about Asimov, you know he's the only guy who wrote in every single category of the Dewey Decimal System. I've got one of his history books lying around. He wrote all sorts of stuff. So he'd taken 15 years off hard science fiction, and this again is a very hard science fiction. It's basically about it's set sort of a few decades after Earth has been gifted limitless energy. So they've been gifted limitless energy by these aliens in a parallel universe. So they get the free energy, but they're not sure what it is, how it works. It's basically magic to them. And then the novel's broken into three sections, and the three different sections are three characters who realise that this limitless energy is not all it's what's the word, what's the term? It's basically going to blow up the sun, so it's not good. So the first section's set with an Earth scientist, and he's obviously discovered it, and then the second section is the most famous section, is set on an alien world in the parallel universe of a dying planet. And this is famously, Asimov goes into incredible detail of this alien culture to the point where there's a graphic alien sex scene in it, and you don't get that very often, so that's very interesting. And then the third section is a scientist on the moon, a lunar-born scientist. So that always works for me. That sort of narrative breakup. It just makes things exciting. So this is about questioning things like, do you know how your mobile phone works? Stuff like that. It's basically magic to us, and if it works, do we think about how it actually works? Would we think about how limitless energy worked if someone told us it's working? I don't think so. So, very interesting book by Asimov, and my favourite Asimov I've read so far. Right, we stick with the big three next, because in 1973 to 1974, the winner was Arthur C. Clarke. And this is not the book that won, but this is the sequel to the book that won. The book that won is Rendezvous with Rama, and my little brother, I think, has stolen my copy, so I will punch him in the head the next time I see him, and I'll put some pictures of the book up here. So this is what I was talking about when I said with Ringworld we'll see this theme again, or this plot line again. Rendezvous Rama is a giant cylindrical, what's the word? I always forget the word, but it's round and long. It'll be in the pictures of the book. Object that appears, and they don't know what it is, and they send a team to go investigate. And when they open it up, inside is a world that is spinning around. So the outside has centrifugal force. So you see this in some films now, like Interstellar and stuff, where the spaceship's spinning. So it creates force on the edge, so you can live on it like a mock gravity. And they're basically investigating this world and trying to find out who the Ramans are. This is a book I really like. I've read it several times. I like Arthur C. Clarke because he's more he's not that interested in characters, he's more interested in the technology, and his books are always set around a technology, and Arthur C. Clarke himself was a fairly high level scientist, so he had a deep understanding of physics, and for example, he invented something called the space elevator, which will appear later in this list, just through thinking it up. So he thinks of this sort of technological concept, in this case the alien ship that is spinning and creating gravity, and then the novel is built around that. So you probably won't like Arthur C. Clarke if you're in it for the characters and sort of plot lines, I suppose. but he is very. I find him very interesting. Yeah, so I think Rama is probably my favourite Arthur C. Clarke book that I've read as well. Next winner is in 1974, 1975. So it was the next year actually, and this one actually won the Locus Award as well. So all of the big three awards, and we're returning to my favourite author, Ursula K. Le Guin, and her novel The Dispossessed. So this is quite different to The Left-Handed Darkness, but has some similar themes. Again, Le Guin is not a hard sci-fi author. She is focused mainly on the soft sciences, which is why she's quite good for people to get into sci-fi to read as a sort of beginner book. Like I said, The Left-Handed Darkness was not a good beginner book for Le Guin. This one's slightly easier, but again, this is considered perhaps her other great sci-fi masterpiece, and there's lots of stuff going on here. So this is more an exploration of systems of government and utopia and sort of individualism versus collectivism. So it might be a bit of a reply to Ayn Rand. The setting of this is a planet and a moon, and they're both inhabited. So sort of like twin worlds. So there's Uras, which is the planet, and that is a capitalist society with a patriarchal system. And then there's Uros, which broke off like 200 years ago, and they are a anarcho-syndicalist society. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry, nor did I. So Le Guin became fascinated with anarchy as a system of government. I'm going to read you a quote from Le Guin from, I think it's the Library of America edition. I got it off Wikipedia. So this is what she reflected on when she was talking about writing this novel. She says, "The Dispossessed started as a very bad short story, which I didn't try to finish but couldn't quite let go. There was a book in it, and I knew it, but the book had to wait for me to learn what I was writing about and how to write about it. I needed to understand my own passionate opposition to the war that we were endlessly, it seemed, waging in Vietnam and endlessly protesting at home. I had known then that my country would continue. If I had known then that my country would continue making aggressive wars for the rest of my life, I might have had less energy for protesting that one. But knowing only that I didn't want to study war no more, I studied peace. I started by reading a whole mess of utopias and learning something about pacifism and Gandhi and non-violent resistance. This led me to non-violent anarchist writers such as Peter Kropotkin and Paul Goodman. With them I felt a great immediate affinity." So this is an anti-war novel as well, which is I didn't mention, but it's about a scientist called Shevek who lives on Anaris. So he lives in the anarchist utopia, and he's developing a general theory of something or other. I don't know enough about science to know, but he's developing this theory, and he's finding himself unable to do that on Anaris, because although it's a free society and you're independent, you have manual labour to do. Everyone chips in. It's collectivism, and he also finds that his superiors think his theory doesn't fit into their societal beliefs. It's where it like they're almost scared of progress. So it's an anarchist utopia, but Le Guin criticises it. So Shevek wants to go to Uras, where he thinks in this sort of capitalist society he might be able to get ahead. So he goes there, and they're just as bad. They want to use his creations for war. So it's a deep sort of look at political systems and the good and the bad of both of them. So that's why it's slightly better, I think, than Left Hand of Darkness as your first Le Guin, because we live in these societies. So it's very interesting, and it's a brilliant read. It's set in alternative chapters, so you jump from past to present and world to world, which is a great narrative device. And yeah, it's quite a thrilling read, and it's not super long either. Also, this novel is part of the Hainish cycle, the same as Left Hand of Darkness, because Shevek's theories are part of what is known as an Ansible, what is developed from his theories, which is the way that the Ecumen do faster than light communications. So this is technically the first of the Hainish novels, even though it was written much later than some of the other ones. Another Le Guin masterpiece. So yeah, definitely highly recommend this one. And that's another 5 stars for me. I think I'll wrap that up for today. So we managed to get through 4. We got halfway through the 70s. 70s was very good for sci-fi. So the first 2 were in the 60s, and we're halfway through the 70s, and we'll probably wrap up the 70s in the next instalment. If you've read any of these books, let me know down below, especially Ringworld, because that's the only one I haven't read so far, and it does sound interesting to me. It's just might take a little bit of getting into. And if Le Guin's your favourite author as well, what's your favourite Le Guin? Is it Left Hand? Is it Dispossessed? Is it something else? I always find those two are the main two that everyone says are their favourite, or perhaps Wizard of Earthsea. Let me know in the comments. Bye everyone.